Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you may be across the nation or around the world. Once again, you're listening to the VMware Community's Roundtable Podcast. This is podcast number 692. My name is Eric Nielsen. With me today, I have my favorite co-host, Corey Romero. Today is Wednesday, June 5th, 2024. Corey, how you doing today?
Eric, doing well. Weather here in Utah is finally nice and warm, and very, very busy as we build up to VMware Explore. How are you?
I'm doing great. On the show today, we're going to be talking to Bob Planker. He's going to be talking about navigating AI security, compliance, and operational resilience. But before we get to Bob, let's talk about what's actually happening. The color of the bay here, it's sunny. It was 99 degrees in the Bay Area yesterday, so we just got a nice little heat wave going. And it is warm, but it's sunny and warm, which means the bay is almost like a blue, right? Like not muddy green, not green, but just kind of got a lot of sunlight bouncing off the bottom of the bay. And so it's a nice blue color today, so we're happy about that. Into summer, as we come into summer, we're into June, pretty soon, June, July, August. Yep, Explore is on its way, and there's been a lot of things going on with Explore, so let me just talk a little bit about that. So first round of speakers have been accepted into tools. So if you've got a talk submitted, you should probably hear next week. I think the speaker announcements are going to be communicated to speakers next week. You'll get some status. You'll either get you're accepted, you'll get you're in review, or you've been rejected or declined. I think that's the more appropriate word. So that should happen next week. And we've got all of our community sessions and code sessions. I think 80%, the due date was you had to have 80% of the talks accepted into the tool. So we've done that. So I think that we have somewhere in the neighborhood of 50 community talks, and we have 50 code talks, and I think we've accepted like 35 of them so far in both. So if you've got a talk in, you should be hearing from us next week on whether we accepted talks. Most talks we accepted. We had enough room. The talks are only 25 minutes for both code and community talks, so they're going to be fast. In the hub this year, they're also going to have other theaters. They've got places you can listen to Spring One talks. Any talk that's in the hub area will be on this 30-minute rotation. So 5 minutes setup, 25 minutes talk, and then, that's it, 30 minutes. So you will be able to bounce from theater to theater in the hub if you so desire to either see Spring. I believe that the Cube will be doing interviews, and they're going to have some seats. So if you want to go listen to executives getting interviewed, we'll publish what interviews they're going to be doing, and it should be fun. So we're doing that. Main sessions are going on. I know that William Lamb, Duncan Epping, Frank Dunneman, and others are going to have sessions. Some are going to be code sessions, so looking forward to that. Home lab sessions. I saw some of those approvals, so excited about that. And mostly just letting everybody know that Reg, I believe, is open. I don't know if early bird has ended or not, but if you haven't go Reg. We're watching Reg. I think 45% of all registrations are VMUG members. So a lot of community people have registered so far. So we're excited about that. And, we're encouraging people to go get Reg, get your hotel block. I know they got Venetian hotels blocks that are available. Got good rates on that. And then, of course, if you want to go super cheap, there's a handful of hotels out in Vegas. Everybody knows how to do that, where you can get hotel rooms for like $49 a night. So excited about that. We're going to be recording all the code and the VMUG sessions, or the community sessions. So thanks to community volunteers from when I announced this on the podcast, we got a couple people to offer up recording the sessions. So we're excited about that. We will miss V Brownbag this year, but they opted not to come. But we will have the sessions recorded and posted on YouTube as always. So Corey, I don't know if you got vExpert news. You want to take anybody through what's going on with vExperts? Otherwise, yeah.
Yeah, I've got a few things. Eric, yeah, that was a lot. Thank you. Early bird registration ends on June 11th, so it's coming just right around the corner. So
one more week. Yep. Okay.
Yeah. So we experts, we've got a big webinar coming up. It's going to be, I can't tell the topics, but I'm going to have some information in the email that goes out on this coming up Monday. It's going to be for June 25th. It's going to be a 2.5 hour deep dive technical webinar preview that's going to be under embargo. And we're doing this with all the experts. So really, really excited about this. Blog articles that have been submitted and also that have not been submitted that we're tracking for VMware Explorer and pushing registration. I want to say thank you to the vExperts for that. You can go and find 10 of those articles that vExperts have written on the VMware Explorer blog. There's an article up there. I think it's moved down from the top one now. It's the second featured box that has 10 vExpert blog articles in it and the links to them. So I wanted to say thank you for that. Blogger passes, we've almost wrapped up with blogger passes. I had extended the deadline. If you are still interested in getting a blogger pass, you can reach out to me. My email is corey.romero@broadcom.com, and I can have you submit an application. I'll review it, and maybe we can get you a blogger pass. Other than that, we've got coming up for call for blogs for content catalog and schedule builder coming up on June 16th and July 16th. So vExperts watch for my emails on both of those.
Nice. And as we get accepted members into the tool, you'll get invited to Speaker Reg. If you submitted a talk, we'll get you in, and then we'll do some promotion on you guys as well, so that you'll be able to see the 100 sessions that are out there. So everybody will get to see those. We'll promote some of those, and should be good. So excited, ramping up. Everything's starting to ramp up and get in full strength for Explorer. Let's move on, Mr. Plankers. It's always good to have you. You're every 6 months we get to hear what your perspective is on the world. We do the elevator pitch. How long have you been a Broadcom employee now?
How long have I been a Broadcom employee? Well, it's either that or a VMware by Broadcom employee. Hey, wait, that's not actually a company. And but yeah, no, I don't know. Yeah, no, just plucking away at. Broadcom's all right. I just I mostly dislike feeling new all over again, and but I'm getting past it. I'll tell you that. But yeah, no, it's good to be on. Thanks for having me on here, you guys. It's always a pleasure to talk with you folks. Usually about security and compliance. Usually I'm sitting in my truck or I'm going somewhere or whatever. So kind of weird to actually be in the office. So
it is weird to see you in your studio or in whatever you are, in an office or whatever. Yeah. Like, is that a real backdrop, or are you sitting behind a brick
That is
wall?
A real backdrop. I've got my coats and my coat tree over there. I've got my Mac SE30 and on top of it is my old Apple Newton, and that I've got some VMUG stuff back there in my books.
Yeah, and since we've had you on the podcast, and most people have heard of you before, I'll just say Bob's been here for a long time, and comes out of the northwest, out of is it Wisconsin or
Wisconsin? Just south of Madison, Wisconsin. So
nice.
Yeah, I know I've been appreciating this the work you folks do on this podcast for, I don't know, 15 years, that sort of thing. So
keep on going. It has been a fun transition. I talk about the fact that we got through day 2, and I should actually do a platform update status report on this podcast too, because a lot of customers came into the support portal, and at first they told us don't say anything, they're working on things, and then I was able to say, hey, we're working on it, and now I can actually say that I think probably 85% of the customers have been resolved and are now able to get into the portal and get into their license views and other things. So I did get a report yesterday that they think it's there's only maybe several thousand customers out of whatever the number is, 20 to 30,000 that were hung up with this. So I think we're going through all of the platform transitions. We've now managed to get community stable. So communities.broadcom.com, where VMTN migrated to. We've got that stable, and now we're starting to do edits and cleaning up. And William Lamb on the Flings, which is now on the front on that page, is
good.
Publishing some of the big ones. There was like gigabyte images or things that
Oh, wow.
it was hard to get uploaded. We had to actually have the vendor go do a special process to get a couple of these uploaded. But yeah, I think we uploaded 150 different flings. Corey zipped them all up in a nice downloadable zip. So a lot of transition happened, a lot of deployment. Broadcom believed in deploying all at once, right? They're kind of a do it now or and move on. So we've been fixing bugs. That's now starting to stabilize, which is nice because we can get back to doing what we normally do, right?
That's what I'm missing as well. Actually getting out, doing some content, doing some live streams and things like that, getting back to stable state, being able to talk about things, being able to talk about the things that Corey's talking about, the super secret announcements, and those will be fun. And
that's what I would say. We got a couple more things to clean up, but I would say that Corey's got announcements there. So we're getting into announcement season. And
business as usual here. We're a software company. We've got software. Right. Development continues, it's all good.
Yeah. And I would say that, to transition into what we're going to talk to you about today, I was looking at a lot of the code sessions, and you'd be surprised. I think 50% of the code sessions that I reviewed all have AI in them, right? Like
that does not surprise me.
I kind of believed, I've been listening to the hype of how much AI, everybody chat GPT and AI and how deep it's going. But I'm actually surprised how much content is being now developed or proposed to development around VMware's AI reference architecture to the chat bots and Justin something or other Justin Murray came on the podcast
been doing a great job.
Talked about that. I'm not sold on necessarily chat bot market space personally. But the AI reference architecture and having an example app that actually builds, a smart DB and, keeps I can see where that's a nice reference thing to do to get your feet wet. I don't know.
Well, yeah, that's the thing. And how do you get into this stuff? And how does an organization get into this stuff? And what are you doing when you get into it as well? The reference architecture helps with that. And what the reference architecture doesn't really say, I mean, we're very modest sometimes about this stuff, is that we've had the architecture in vSphere, in ESXi and vCenter for years now to be able to deal with GPUs, to operationalize use of GPUs and computing hardware like this, to be able to vMotion. You can vMotion a workload, an AI workload that's using a GPU to another host, so you can patch it, all that sort of stuff. And we've had that for a while now. It's just nice to be able to tie it all together, especially with a lot of these large language models. Large language models are the ones that, and this generative AI stuff, is the stuff that people go, wow, this thing learned English, or learned whatever language, and it, it can do, well, it can't do math very well. There's lots of examples of that, but that it sort of looks like it's reasoning, it's not a human brain. It's not the same, but you can ask it questions, and it can make conclusions. It sees things in a different way than you do. And so you can ask it stuff. And especially Justin's, the example I think you're talking about from Justin's talks is the one with retrieval augmented generation, where you've got a model, you've got like the Llama 3 model, for example, and those models are really hard to train. They use, I think the Llama 3 one took 196 GPU years to train it. So that's not something you or I are going to do, but we can help it along. We can give it all this content in these vector databases, these other things. You see it even locally. You can run chat GPT for all, or the Llama tool, and you can give it a repository of documents. Just throw a bunch of PDFs at it. And I do this from time to time with like security and compliance documents. Throw it out there, and then I ask it questions. I give it the vSphere manual, and I give it the PCI DSS 4.0 regulatory compliance standard, and I'm like, tell me how these fit together, and it's not quite there yet, it's still, stuff like that still takes somebody that knows what they're doing to take a look at it, but it makes connections though in ways that I wouldn't have caught. And so it can add to insights and things, but there's a lot of hype around it. There's a lot of stuff here. I found this meme. This was out here. I think I can switch to it here. The AI, there's basically two big fronts here. AI will kill us all. AI will solve it all. And then for folks just listening on the podcast, it's a matrix thing where he's taking the red pill and the blue pill, and then AI researchers, it's
Right.
Morpheus saying, "Did you just take both of the pills?" And like, hey, wait a second, guys. So, but yeah. I'd liken it to Ben Franklin's description of beer, the cause of and solution to all of life's problems. So.
I feel like the GPU management in vSphere was one of these technologies that didn't have that big a market, right? Because
it's like, why are you doing this? Who cares? Yeah, well, turns out,
yeah, the AutoCAD guys were like, I remember in conferences like, well, AutoCAD guys, and that solves the AutoCAD. You can have your VM back for your desktop and run it on a server and share GPUs. And I'm like, or you could just buy a workstation, put it on your desk, and run AutoCAD locally. Right?
There's that too. I mean, the balance between complexity and getting stuff done. Like how much complexity. As techs, we tend to be comfortable with complexity and like making things more complicated, but really that's our enemy. And the more we can get rid of that complexity, the more we can drive stuff to look the same. Especially these workloads that are the fact that we can apply most of the security controls that we've always been applying to workloads, or probably should have been applying to workloads, to these new AI workloads, these models, somebody messing around with the stuff, and we can make it easy, and we can do it in a way that still means that we can patch the infrastructure. Yeah, that's super cool, and then we can move on to the other harder problems, like, is it ethically responsible to index everyone's content and not send and basically end the web as we know it, or is it a good idea to index Reddit such that AI results in search engine results tell you to add glue to your pizza to keep the cheese from moving around, or that Berkeley geologists say that you should eat a rock every day, like based on snarky remarks from Reddit participants.
Right. So, well, getting back to my original thread here, which is we didn't have a big market, right, with AutoCAD control because you have a desktop end, and then Bitcoin mining showed up, and it's like, you can still sell. I'm just looking at NVIDIA's growth history, right? And it's like, well, it was just a gaming and AutoCAD, right? AutoCAD in the commercial industry and gaming at home. Then you became, crypto mining blew up, but that wasn't really enterprise, and so enterprise didn't have a big need for managing GPU resources, right? Yeah. And then all of a sudden AI shows up, right? And it's like, it's just this massive mountain of need for GPU resource management, right? GPU resource period, and then management of that. And you're like, okay, now I can see this is a true enterprise class problem that needs management solutions, right? And therefore, this is why it's booming. It's just booming because now you have an enterprise workload that we never had before, right? And we had small use cases for this stuff, but we've had it for a long time, right? Because there were some people that had big AutoCAD, or graphics, and they used to show up, and the Maya folks would do movie rendering kind of things. And, but I just looked at it and kind of chuckled going, I wouldn't spend my IT budget trying to manage that, on top of vSphere. But there has been, but now it's crazy. Now everybody's doing it. And now we come to you and this topic of the podcast, which is AI security and compliance. And how does this, when you are doing this, what are kind of new rules that are needed to help, manage this blossoming industry?
Well, that's, as I was alluding to, it's a bigger problem than we can apply a lot of the same security concepts, like most of the security concepts that actually help people are really old. The CIA triad, confidentiality, integrity, availability, the core tenets of information security. They're no different with an AI workload, really, but the things you have to worry about with AI, it's such a rich target. You're going to train this model on all of your business data, and how do you know? Well, one, garbage in, garbage out. How do you know that it was trained with the right stuff? How do you know that there's the whole class of problems around basically supply chain sorts of things, software supply chain? How do you know that all the dependencies that you need are correct and are trustworthy? All of that stuff. How do you know that somebody didn't slip something that shouldn't be in there into its training data? There's all of that sort of stuff that I kind of lump under the governance side of the world, figuring that sort of stuff out. And so there's all those sort of people and process problems that go along with it. And then we've got governance, not only just your own internal organization's governance around how do you use this thing, what's appropriate for it. How do we know that we taught it well? These things are almost like children. I relate them to children very often because, like they don't really understand what they're talking about sometimes. And the solution to it is actually to talk to them more. It's not to edit parts of them out, but anyhow, I digress. As far as governance goes, then you've got people that are trying to help you. There's political stuff going on. The UK talking about banning types of AI, California as well, putting restrictions on AI that actually has computational numbers in there. If you exceed a certain number of teraflops of computation. And, and so what happens when you're doing this stuff in California, or maybe you're running your stuff in a public cloud, renting some GPUs from a public cloud out of a data center in California, and now the laws in California change, how does that work? And that's undiscovered country, as it were,
Yeah. And I want to ask you about that. Yeah, I hear that AI is bringing workloads back into the data center, right? And I've heard the two reasons. One is, because cloud compute capacity is expensive, GPU capacity is expensive, and you can just buy your own gear. It's more economical to put
your own gear is still expensive,
right.
but it's 3 times more in the public cloud, and that's even with static reservations,
Which understand that one, that makes sense. The one that I've heard then also is that people are worried about putting their models out in the public, cloud because of, and that's what I don't know, because of what? What are they? What are people?
Well, because of the shared nature of it, so there's, one of the nice things that was always about services like VMware Cloud and things is that you had the whole box, even in like AWS or whatever, you had the whole box. You didn't have other people around you. And that's not necessarily the case with some of these services where you've got other people interacting. It's multi-tenant, and you don't know what the security boundaries are there. You don't know. In fact, there's some examples recently of people uploading malicious models that were able to access to some of these services, these cloud services, that were able to access data from other places in the service that they shouldn't have had access to. And so how does that work? And especially when you're feeding it sensitive business information and things that fall under compliance.
Right. Okay. I get
HIPAA, that. We talk about AI in healthcare. Well, there's all this HIPAA and all this compliance stuff that's got to happen there. How do you assure yourself and your auditors that, this stuff remains private?
So I guess tough. To summarize at my level of an understanding here is that to make your models good, if I think of what you're saying here, to make your models good, corporations probably have to feed it a lot of information that you wouldn't necessarily have out in your SaaS service in your cloud, right? You would, and all of a sudden, in order to make your models work, you are exposing those models to all kinds of internal information, and that stuff just can't go out into the cloud, right? So if you want to build good models, this stuff has to stay on-prem.
Well, and then the other thing too is that the idea of data gravity as the term, like that data itself, the AI needs to be near the data. And if all your data is in the cloud, that's one thing. But a lot of organizations, their data is not all in the cloud. The data that they want to mine, that they want to teach their AI models about is local, and the and it needs fast access. It's I've likened it to, well, what is it? Audrey 2 or whatever from Little Shop of Horrors, feed me Seymour, these things, they're very hungry. They just eat data. And especially if you want to retrain them or reiterate on this,
right? Or if you have real-time data coming in,
you've got real-time data. Where's that coming from?
Right.
And are there charges?
Yeah.
Are there charges involved in accessing that data? A lot of the cloud services, it's all chargeback, right? And so even just screwing around, you can to see if this will work. You can run up tens of thousands of dollars of a bill where you can, if you do this on premises, even at a lower scale, like you've got a lot more freedom to mess around, to try things in a lab, to do whatever, to see if this is going to work without having all of this other governance and budgeting and all of that stuff. And so there's a lot of upsides to the on-premises world, again, when it comes to AI.
Yeah, I can see that, if you have a stable workload, if you're processing mail or whatever the stable workload is, you can move that to the cloud, no big deal. When you're designing, developing, building brand new, and it's critical and it's consuming critical data, I could see where, and you want to, to your point, want to have test beds, and we have staging servers, test servers, and you don't know what it's going to generate, and then you have to make sure that it's generating something useful. Putting out in the cloud would just be risky and expensive. Could see
it can be. I mean, everyone's different, but the and then back to the when the political situation changes or the cost model changes, power in California might cost more than power in Washington State, for example. And the ability to within our own products, the classic vMotion ability, you right click on something and pick migrate, the ability to do that with your models and your data, and just have it go wherever it's optimal, that's super cool. And but again, it's nothing special. We've been doing this. It's nothing special to us. We've been doing this for 20 years, like what vMotion's been around since 2005, I believe is when it was released. And, so 19 years of vMotion. And so we don't even think about it, but this is heavy duty, cool stuff to people who would otherwise be tied to a location and a particular piece of hardware, so.
Yeah, and you get also into like code generation. I talked to Justin a little bit about this, right? Like that, if you're starting to use AI to build your business apps at the same time, right? Like then it has to be central to engineering, right? Where are the engineers that are going to be working with AIs to generate the product? All of a sudden, it's top priority business. It's no longer just let's just outsource this thing to the cloud.
Well, that's a great point. And so how do you make that resilient? We're back to the availability part of the CIA triad. Like if your system isn't available to you, what good is it? You've spent all this money on something that it doesn't matter. But if you're using it to generate code, if you're using it for central business processes, if you're using it as a chat bot for customer service and there's some pitfalls there too. I don't know if you've seen all the examples of people basically asking support chat bots, treating them like Chat GPT, like a free Chat GPT interface, which is kind of funny. But you're using it for customer facing things. You don't want that stuff to be down. There's a cost associated with having that stuff down, and and what is that cost nowadays? And so figuring that out and using that budgetary number to figure out what level of resilience, instead of calling up Dell and ordering one of their gigantic 8 2000 watt power supply, 8 GPU boxes or whatever for $300,000, like maybe you want to buy 2 of them, and maybe you want to put one of them in a different state, that sort of thing. So,
right. Yeah. I can say, so I got to pivot a little bit in that you get to, I know there's a lot of hype around this. Obviously, all the IT people VMware and Dell and other people are out here seeing delusions of happiness, right, with dollar signs in them, right? When you're listening to customers, where is the customer on this journey? Are they as excited as the IT industry is around the potential here, or are they starting to get their feet wet? Currently, a little bit like NSX. It was really cool, but it took a long time to get enterprises to actually virtualize their network fabric, right? Where are we? Yeah,
stability is key for a lot of that stuff. And so your example of NSX is a interesting one, because that required core redesigning of environments. You had to overcome a lot of inertia and such. And so this is a little different. This is something new that doesn't necessarily challenge the stability of a data center or anything like that. And so I think there's the sense that I get is it's interesting, but for a lot of IT folks, it's also like, what now? And so being able to figure out how to support it in a way that doesn't break all of their other stuff, and that's
Right.
It gets back to what we've been talking about. The ability to just run this stuff in vSphere is super cool. Run it in VCF. That's super cool.
Well, I'm just wondering how real is CIOs coming down saying, "Hey, we're starting to do this. We're going to start building AI apps." And
it's real.
IT, you have to respond to this.
Yeah, it's real. The a lot of it's just exploratory. What can we do with this sort of stuff? But it's real. And because the promise of it, and that's the other thing. People don't want to upload their data to the chat GPTs, the public services, the chat GPTs, right. The Claude.ai. I really like Claude.ai, by the way. And they don't want to upload their data there. So, even we have a language model that we've trained internally on stuff, on our manuals, engineering stuff, just to see how would this work, and it also helps us to be able to support this stuff better, and so, but that's kind of where a lot of organizations are. Can we do something internally? A lot of organizations have policies now. You can't upload data to external services. So, okay, what can I do locally, for the cost of a GPU? And maybe somebody buys a workstation or something like that.
Right.
And can we run this stuff? What benefit, is this a real thing? So a lot of exploration going on, and it's very early on in all of this stuff. And so, but
just because we've been in such a cost conscious state of being for the last few years, since really COVID, right? I haven't seen a boom of anything, right? That's going to take money. And so the fact that they're willing to invest in this now, and maybe it's a fear of missing out, FOMO, right? A little bit
There's always a little bit of that, especially at the C levels and stuff. But it feels, like I said, because it's not something that's going to upend, it's upending things or has the potential to do that, but it's not threatening the stability of core operations right now. It's something that I think a lot of organizations are a lot more tolerant of, and a lot more tolerant of trying it out, playing around with it. So, like I said, a lot of exploration going on.
So, okay, that answered most of my questions around like the market space. How much is hype and how much is real? It's kind of like the blue pill versus the red pill. Really, where am I going with this? And is it really going, or just do I sit and take no pills right now? Which is good to kind of understand that.
Yeah.
Right? When we're talking about AI and security, right? Obviously, securing of the actual databases themselves so that they don't get any kind of interjection in those, right, where you get bad information. Have we seen anybody ransomwaring AI engines yet?
Oh, sure. I mean, it's a workload that gets ransomed like everything else. So like, it's no different in that regard. I'm sure attackers are clever. I don't want to give them too much credit, because they can be very clever. They've got good tooling and processes and a lot of automation for figuring stuff out. And I'm sure case in point, let's apply AI to everything. Some of the Microsoft announcements about Copilot recall, the security response there, the fact that it recall will capture QR codes for authentication. It will capture passwords, will capture basically anything you type into your computer will be indexed by this thing. And the security community has been having a field day with that. The idea that that they can an attacker can just log into a desktop and get into a desktop and just ask recall for, hey, I forgot my credit card numbers and all that stuff, and it'll just give it to them, like, hey, what the heck, and so there's there's a lot of interest on the part of attackers.
Right.
It's always an arms race,
Right.
So.
Yeah, I didn't really think about that from a security perspective of, somebody getting on and engaging with the AI in a non-authentic way, not an authorized way. And the next thing you know, the AI is helping you crack into other things.
Yep.
Right?
Every tool you have to make your life easier also makes the attacker's life easier. So, where's the balance? You need to get stuff done, but is it really a good idea to record absolutely everything that you have ever done on your computer in that way and index it? That scares the crap out of a lot of people. I'll just say that, and so.
So I got to ask on the reality of, I was cracked last year because I didn't have my firewall up, and I fixed all that, and I got VPN and all that, so it's good. Now my little home lab in the world in Iraq and San Jose is happily, I think, secure. Right? Like,
thank you for doing that.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Right. I guess with NSX and firewall capabilities everywhere you turn now, there's like more security and more security and more security. Are we getting ahead of this? I know you say it's an arms race, but like I would expect sooner or later, we look at every single network packet. It has to have a destination. We know what it is. We know what app is calling it, and it's like you would think it would just be impossible to get in over time.
I don't know that we're getting ahead of it. There's some efforts. CISA, the Cybersecurity and Information Security Agency, arm of the U.S. government of DHS, has been on a campaign to do more secure by default sorts of things. That's good. And I think if anything, people are starting to realize for a long time, there was this idea of, the idea that you could get ahead of the attackers by using more tools and by adding more complexity to your environment. Maybe we monitor it better, all of that stuff. And really, I think there's a large chunk of people coming around to the idea that the answers actually lie in information security concepts that are decades old at this point. The idea of access control, defense in depth, least privilege, don't let everyone access everything, like only give people the rights that they need for certain things. Really going back to the old school ideas of this stuff, and that it's not about adding complexity, that the complexity doesn't get you ahead. The complexity actually then just distracts you. Going back to these core ideas, making our environments more like castles, or even castles, and that with more internal controls though too. A deeper moat around them, well defended front door and drawbridge, big walls, that sort of thing, because it's defensible. Access control is everything. And I think that's starting to resonate with people as they see a lot of ransomware still happening, and a lot of breaches. And ransomware is big and visible, big and visible. I don't want to say it's invisible. Big and visible, but it's not the scariest stuff out there. The scariest stuff is like the SolarWinds stuff, where the attackers left something behind, and got an organization to infect everyone else on behalf of the attackers. That's the scary stuff, and that's the stuff you don't hear about, and that it's hard to catch. And so why it's really important for organizations to worry about supply chain stuff, where they're getting their software from, and things that we can speak to as part of our offerings with AI too. So,
Corey Romero, let's see if I got your camera has a cable in front of it.
Yeah.
For the last 10 minutes.
It's been slowly falling.
Yeah.
I've got my other keyboard on top of my Mac here. So thank you.
There you go. No worries. Yeah. All right. So getting back to the basics, right, of physical security and stuff that we've always known, right?
Just keeping people out of your stuff. Who needs to be in it? Can you keep it patched? So I don't know.
Yeah. We'll have to watch. It is good to know that that I haven't been hacked in the last year now, so I must be doing something right. Like everybody else has to keep track of this. But then if I look at AI and I go, but it's really what you're saying is it's just the traditional security stuff, even applied to AI, right?
Even applied to AI, the actual technical stuff tends to be the traditional stuff, the things that we've been doing for a long time. Where it can get complicated is data access. What do these models need for data? Can we allow them in a secure way? That sort of stuff. And so,
right.
But
so I would say, getting back to my code and community sessions, AI security was another one that we had, probably 10 or 15 talks submitted on it, right?
That's cool.
Looking at, like security, AI security. I think they must wrap AI in the title of submissions just so that, they think that's going to get people, but it is back to just security principles. I have a feeling, right? Like,
I would be interested in seeing what they're talking about. That's, and if there are particular things, everyone sees different parts of this. So, if there's particular things that I'm missing, or whatever, and what they're thinking about for security, and if they've got tools, because that's the other side of things, is the ability to apply AI to the security space, kind of in a William Gibson-esque sort of mentality, where we've got AIs that are now looking at our logs, doing the mundane things that humans hate to do, which is, looking at logs, looking at access control policies. That's something that a computer is really good at, and if you can give let's pick on Active Directory. Well, let's pick on vSphere. If we can dump the Active Directory is too easy. Sorry. But anything with a big role-based access control model in it is going to have gaps and cracks in it. And if you could hand that to an LLM or whatever and say, tell me how somebody might, be able to get domain admin or be able to get administrator rights in vSphere or VCF, and it comes back and tells you, heck, that's cool. And are there tools that we can build there that don't really add to the complexity of our world, but give us a massive return on investment to help us close doors, help, seal off the cracks that hackers get through and all of that stuff, and so I don't know, that's a really interesting space as well. And perhaps some of the code examples have things in there,
there were some tool vendors that were submitting. Microsoft submitted one or two as well, right?
That's cool. Okay.
So I'll have to. Yeah. We are going into a second phase of acceptance, right, where 20% have not been accepted yet, because we have new ones coming in and they dribble
late
up from
submissions.
You
want to hold open a spot for,
right. Yep. So maybe I'll set up a half-hour Zoom and I'll show you the spreadsheet, and you can
that'd be cool.
Look at some of the, because I left a lot of them pending because I was like, well, how many AIs and how many securities, and
it's all AI,
that exactly. It was one of those things. And oddly, we also have some of the people that submit like 7 or 8 papers with slightly different worded,
well,
topics.
If I just beat you up in volume, you're bound to let one slip past, right? You're gonna fall asleep and hit submit or something.
When I was accepting, I actually, I was doing it with Miriam Scoble, who works for the event team, and we were going through, she was reviewing what I had accepted and what, just she does that a once over, and she would, you've got 5 sessions accepted by this one author, right? I didn't even notice because I was looking at the description and the subject and the spreadsheet. I had zoomed in and I couldn't really see the authors because I'm reading the description of the paper. I don't care who talks about it. I was just like, is this a good paper? Is this a good subject? And we had a couple other people reviewing them. And in one of them, we had seen that there was 7 papers, and we said, we'll go back and we'll pick 2 of them from this author, right? But I liked all of them. So Miriam's like, you have 5 from this one guy, and I'm like, oh yeah, okay, we'll have to remove those. So getting back to that, are you any papers from Mr. Bob Plankers? Did you submit anything?
Yeah, I've got some stuff. So it looks like, I think Julia had indicated in our chat here that the stuff should go out starting tomorrow, actually. But
right.
I'm hoping to hear that I've been accepted, and don't we all like being accepted for who we are? But I would like to be accepted, and I've submitted. I did my usual. I submitted 7 or 8 or 9 different.
Yeah, you did, didn't you? Yes.
But they're all different.
You were the guy I was talking about. I didn't want to
as it turns out,
I was like I accepted 5 from Bob. I didn't realize.
I submit a whole bunch of different stuff, and if people want it or not, I think And to your point, that's one of the tricks. You submit it into different tracks
because there's different reviewers, right? I know you had one in our track, and I know that it was accepted because we accepted we almost accepted everything. But the code and community doesn't get you a badge. So
I just like helping people to be informed.
Learn.
I love the community. That's one of the nice things about VMware and VMware tools all along here. The community's been really great. And so, I should be at Explorer. I think I've got a tutorial session this year. So that's basically a workshop. It's like a 2-hour long. I get to talk about all of the stuff at length. We can actually get into the details of the stuff, like get into the nitty gritty weird stuff, and that'll be really cool. We've got some Meet the Experts sessions as usual, where people can stop by and ask random questions and harass us a little bit. And not that I do enjoy being poked and prodded, and so, it'll be great. I'm looking forward to it again. So.
Yeah, and I know that if you're out listening and you're on the fence, or you weren't even thinking about coming to Explore, I would encourage you to come because VMware's getting its feet underneath it again, right? Like, I mean, it has been a year and a half of we're being bought by Broadcom, the evil empire, blah blah blah, right? Like but honestly now they're not that evil at all, and I never said they were, but I would say that now
just some of the perceptions
we're getting our feet. You could argue that the whole platform day 2 thing was hard, right? But now we're getting out of this, and we're actually seeing the products evolve, right? And the engineering teams are, I go down to the Promontory campus, all the engineers are there, working away, cafeteria's full.
There's focus like there hasn't been focus in a while, and that's actually really cool. Laser focus on stuff customers want, and that'll be out in future products. That's super cool.
Yeah, I feel like it reminds me of 2010 at VMware, right? So should be fun if you come. We're going to have the community party. If you get invited to that, I think it's leadership plus some of the experts. We have invited Hawk and Karish, who runs the VCF group. So we haven't gotten confirmation on either one of those yet, but we have talked to their people, and their people are interested in it, right? And interested.
Hawk seems to like the community stuff, and the community. It's good for them to see the community and that. Those guys are fun to talk to anyhow. So
so excited about Explore, excited that you're there, William, Duncan, Frank Denneman, everybody that has passion for VMware will be there, right? And it should be a great event. And like I said, 50% or 45% of all the participants registered right now are end user VMUG members, right? So excited about that as well. So it should be a good event, and I haven't seen any scale back. I've seen actually over investment, right? So should be good. Can't wait to see you there, Bob. And
likewise, it's always a pleasure to see both of you guys.
Yeah. Thanks for coming on the show and giving us an update of what you've been working on. And can't wait to see you hanging around the sphere. And thanks for spending your lunch or pre-lunch, because we recorded this an hour earlier, with you today.
Thanks for having me on. Anytime.
Yep.